So today we're going to start in with our 2-point perspective. If you would, turn in your sketchbook to a new blank page with your page turned horizontally, and at the top label it 2-point perspective notes and put your name in the top right hand corner. The very next thing we're going to do is start in by adding around the middle of the page our horizon line, which we know represents our eye level. And this time, instead of placing a single vanishing point in the middle, we are going to put a left vanishing point, and I'm going to label that LVP for short, and a right vanishing point and label that RVP for short. Our cube, if we think about what this looks like in 2-point perspective, instead of seeing the front face looking at you straight on, the object has been tilted and we now see this front vertical edge. And that's the main difference between 1 versus 2-point perspective. So instead of having these lines be horizontal, notice how as I tilt that, they now appear to diminish to a vanishing point over here on the left, and then this side appears to diminish to a vanishing point over here on the right. So that's the basic look of a 2-point perspective cube. One above the horizon line, one at the horizon line, and one below the horizon line. So we're going to draw some of those today and figure out how those look in our notes. So to start, we're going to place one above and to the right of from our horizon line. So if you would, we're going to start with a 2-inch vertical line representing that front vertical edge. Our next step is to take the bottom and top of that line, and I'm going to connect both to my left vanishing point. And that's going to start to create that left wall diminishing to the left vanishing point. Then I'm going to take that same line, top and bottom, and connect it to my right vanishing point. And this is going to start to create my right side of my box. For the moment, we have a plane that goes on and on and on forever on each side from this center vertical. But what we need to do is cut this off and give an end to our cube. So with a vertical line from matching the front, I'm going to slide back and decide how wide I want this to be. And I'm going to drop in a vertical right there. And then on the left side, I'm going to do the same thing with a vertical line. I'm going to decide how wide I want this side to be. And notice I'm going to slide this left side out a little bit wider because there's a really important trick I want you to think about. This side is tilted a lot more sharply to this right vanishing point, and this left side is a much more subtle tilt going to the left vanishing point. What that means in perspective is that the right side is going to be more foreshortened than the left. So because it's more foreshortened, I'm going to make this side narrower or skinnier than I do that left side. And that's going to give me the look of it being correct if I want it to look like a cube. So once I have my 2 verticals dropped in, cutting off the edges of my box, I'm going to take this bottom right corner that I've now created for my cube, and I'm going to do what I call a crisscross. I'm going to crisscross my right corner to my left vanishing point, and then I'm going to crisscross my left corner to my right vanishing point. By doing this, I've just created the bottom plane of my new box. And then what I'm going to do is erase any of those extra diminishing lines that I no longer need. Now this looks like a solid, non-transparent cube in 2-point perspective, where we can see this vertical edge is facing us directly. But we also need to be able to create this transparently where we can see all 6 planes going through the cube. So we just took those 2 left and right corners and crisscrossed them to their opposite vanishing point. So in order to make our cube transparent, we are going to slide up our cube to the top 2 corners and do the same thing. I'm going to take this upper left corner and crisscross it to my right vanishing point. But this time I'm going to use a dotted line since this is going to be going through my cube. Like that. And I'm going to take the right corner and connect it to my left vanishing point. Now remember, a really important thing that we want to make sure is that anytime 2 or more dotted lines are intersecting, I want to make sure that those dots from both are physically touching. So I'm going to make sure I'm going to extend my little dot from each one. And then based on that, I can tell exactly where that back corner of my cube should be. Now, I only need these dotted lines from this left corner back to the center corner and this right corner back to the center corner. So I can now erase my extra diminishing lines. Now the only thing that we have left to do on our cube is we need to create the back vertical line for our cube. So if you have done everything correctly, this intersection right here should be vertically directly above this intersection right here. So these 2 back corners should be one right above the other. Then we can connect those with a dotted vertical line. And then that is your first 2-point perspective cube complete. Now there are a couple of important things that we want to talk about with 2-point perspective. And those are going to be what those 3 dimensions of space now represent with the 2-point perspective cube. So over on the left-hand side, if you would, write our 3 dimensions of space. And those are height, width, and depth. So in 1-point perspective, we learned that height was represented by vertical lines. And you can see that here in this drawing, the same thing is still true. So height is always going to be represented with verticals. Gonna write a H for height. Now, the width is where the difference comes in. The width in 1-point perspective is always represented with horizontal lines. But now you can see that instead of being horizontal, the width of our cube is now diminishing to a vanishing point. So these are going to be diminishing lines now. And I'm going to label this W for width. And then our depth is going to be over here on this side. Our depth lines will still remain diminishing lines as well. And that's what a cube looks like in 2-point perspective. Now that we have our first cube complete, let's draw one more cube, this time below the horizon line, so that way we can see the top of it, and we'll be able to take some really quick shorthand notes of the steps to draw a cube in 2-point perspective. First, we're going to start again with a 2-inch vertical. Connect top and bottom to both vanishing points. We're going to extend them both. This time, since my center vertical is closer to my left vanishing point, I'm choosing to make this left side narrower or more foreshortened than the right side, making this continue to look like a cube. And here's our cube below the horizon line. The steps now to review are going to be we're going to draw the front edge, and this is just going to look like a vertical line. Step 2, we're going to extend and cut off. So we're going to take both sides to the vanishing point and cut them off with a vertical. Step 3, we're going to crisscross. So we're going to crisscross both corners. The top set of corners will crisscross to the opposite vanishing point, and the bottom set of corners will crisscross to the opposite vanishing point. And step 4 is going to be to add the back edge. And that will just be to drop in that back vertical.